Welcome everybody. This is Doug McCall from the International School Health Network. Pleased to welcome our panel members, who are going to be talking about community schools and partnerships today. We're very pleased to have this as one of the several webinars we've been having in cooperation with the International Center for Excellence in Community Schools. Looking forward to a discussion that will be recorded and available along with the slides on our webinar archives page. So looking forward to this discussion of an important theme that's perhaps one of the core values of community schools, which is the partnership, the relationship between schools and their communities. So I'm going to pass over the lead for the session to Christine Jones, who is Executive Director of the International Center for Excellence for Community Schools. Chris?
Thank you, Doug, and welcome to everybody to this, our fourth webinar. Most of the webinars are focused on the International Quality Standards for Community Schools, which has been prepared by an international quality team. For each of the standards, there are 9 standards in all. We have written what our thinking is behind those standards, and partnerships is no different from that. And you'll see that on the screen I have written partnerships, our thinking, and that our thinking is a hypertext link to rough drafts that we have made of our thinking behind each of these issues. So if you want to learn a little bit more about what we've been thinking about when we decided that partnerships was a key factor in the community school, then please go to the website Schools for All and look for that link. But in a nutshell, I think we would all agree that our societies are getting far more complex these days, with people moving around, with new technology, with new political systems, with new financial arrangements. And what we're finding, I think, is that either children are learning at a faster rate than we can teach because they are using new technology, they're learning from vast resources of the internet and indeed from each other, or they're experiencing at home and in their community many stresses that actually impair their ability to learn because they're too distracted by perhaps a high crime rate, perhaps problems in the family. And in order for us to make sure that, first of all, children are ready to learn, and that secondly, the learning that they have is up to date and relevant, it's becoming increasingly clear that as schools we cannot do this alone and that we need to work with others. Clearly, our first partnership is going to be with the parents ourselves, and indeed working with parents is another one of our standards. But partnerships is a critical factor in being able to ensure that our children are able to access the curriculum that we provide and that the curriculum we provide is relevant to their current needs. To do that, we need partnerships with other organizations. And our speakers today are going to be talking about how we access those partnerships, why we should be working in partnership, and some practical experiences of how those partnerships have come about. I mentioned earlier that we have the Schools for All website, and on that website there is a whole section around community schools. You can find there a summary of community schools. You can read more about our thinking. There's a bibliography. There will shortly be case studies because the International Quality Partnership have put together a sequence of about 9 or 10 different practical case studies showing how community schools are meeting the standards. So I would urge everybody to look at that site and to join in the discussion and to post up your own work. But for today, I'd like to introduce you to our three speakers, and I'm delighted to see that Jana has now joined us from the Czech Republic. Welcome, Jana. Our first speaker of today is Carol, who is the Executive Director of ABC Connect in the US. And I know that Carol's organization supports community schools in the US, but interestingly, also in South Africa and in London, parts of London in the UK that serve deprived communities. Jana, who has just joined us, is the Deputy Principal of a school in rural Czech Republic, where I know they have made many, many different partnerships and been able, as a result, to broaden the curriculum for their children, but also assist the community more widely. And finally, I'm going to ask Bill Malley to speak, who is here in the UK. And he will talk to us from the other side, if you like. He works with NGOs, and in particular one NGO that he will tell us about, that seeks to form partnerships with community schools. I certainly hope that in this discussion we will hear about the advantages, but I do hope too that we will be realistic and people will tell us about some of the challenges which they've had to overcome, and I'm sure that that will be happening. So I'm going to ask first Carol to speak. I think it would probably be a good idea if we listen to all three speakers and then open up for discussion. And I would say to everybody who's with us today, please don't be shy. Please speak to us. You can do it in two ways. You can talk by pressing the little talk button at the top, or you can talk by typing in the chat at the bottom. If English is not your first language, don't worry. I'm sure that we will be able to understand each other and you can take your time. Just on a technical point, the quality is better if you turn off your talk button while you are not speaking and turn it on again when you wish to speak. So with that, I'd like to now turn over to Carol, and welcome, Carol. We're all really looking forward to hear you share your experience with us.
Hello. I hope you understand my New York accent. I thank you, Chris, enormously for this opportunity. My heart is in international work, and so I'd like to tell you about what I have been doing. Doug, do you have my slides?
Yes, please.
Can you put them up?
Yes, there we go. Yes, there we go.
Great. Thank you so much. So I have a little bit of agenda, and because I'm short on time, I will leave it to you to ask questions of detail. And I've posted an article that was written for Reflections, the Society for Organizational Learning, that tells about the project that this discussion is based on. ABC Connect has formed out of a project that was funded by the Kellogg Foundation from 2007 to 2011, and the purpose was to test the model that or the framework that I'm going to explain as soon as I go through the agenda, as an action learning experiment in 2 schools in East London, South Africa, and 2 schools in the United States, which were in Detroit. So the purpose of the organization has become to work with schools to improve teaching and learning through building community partnerships. Very relevant to this conversation. by implementing projects within communities defined by and delivered with community members, so that there is student well-being and school performance is improved. So we all know that the purpose of school is teaching and learning. On the other hand, much as what the information that Chris gave about the many factors and complexity that is affecting schools, particularly disadvantaged schools, we have become aware that only addressing teaching and learning and the school building does not lead to success. So the model, as you can see it on the screen, shows that the center and the purpose is always teaching and learning. But in order to do that, school leaders have to build capacity, manage resources, use all the tools that any leader in any organization needs for management, and most importantly, has to create a school culture. In my experience, when I talk about this, almost no one stands up and says, I know many principals who are able to do this. There's an occasional person who has accomplished it. When you add all the external constraints, children are hungry, English as a second language in a school where the medium instruction is English. They have to walk many miles. There's no English history and no school history in the home. It makes it almost impossible for the school by itself to accomplish its goals. There comes the opportunity and challenge of creating partnerships. So in the areas that we found that there were potential partners represented by each of the circles. So we did not, in the 3-year experiment, actually accomplish partnerships with all of these, but we made inroads and established initial connections in all of them. The next slide is an example of the partnerships that were established in the school in East London, which had the most partnerships and the most action during the 3-year project. The name of the school is Pepperville. At the left bottom is the mission that the people in the school developed as an initial part of the work we did together. And if you look at the circles, the light blue circles, they are the areas in which partnerships were established and programs were initiated. So by example, Petro SA, the national oil company, contributed funds so that we could have a local NGO, ITEC, develop and deliver leadership and management training to the principals and the SGB, which is the legal governing body of schools in South Africa. Another example was a particular initiative on the lower right, which was clean and green operation. The physical environment around the school was very desperately in need of revitalization. There's a river right through the entry to the school, and it was all polluted and people used it for rubbish. And because of that and lots of trees, there was much crime right in school, right outside the school property. So that project involved parents, the municipality, and a local faith-based church that provided volunteers to do the green operation. So I think that's enough context And now I'm going to move forward and tell you about a particular project that had the highest impact in the particular community, Pfefferville, where we work directly with the school. So when we went for the first time and established a relationship with the principal and then had visioning session with the staff and the community, we found it very difficult to engage parents particularly. And that was one of the efforts that we did after we did physical improvements of the school itself. When we got there, there were no boys' toilets. There had been a lot of damage more than 5 years ago from floods. So we worked on many of these projects simultaneously, and ITEC, a local community organization that did a lot of literacy and library type functions, was one of our partners helping develop schools and libraries within the Pfefferville school. The head of that program, Dolores, was well known in the community, very well respected, and Soul City and SABC had decided to create a national virtual reality TV show based on uplifting communities. They went to five of the poorest 7 provinces in South Africa and looked for particular communities that could be used as pilots. They went to Dolores in the Eastern Cape, and Dolores said, having done the work with us, that Pfefferville would be the optimum community to work on in the Eastern Cape. The Kwanzaa people came in and did some research and decided, yes, Pfefferville would be a good place. They built a computer room that would be the central office for the Kwanzaa project, which was expected to run for about a year in this community, even though the actual TV part of it was only 12 weeks. And that gave infrastructure to Pfefferville because they were going to leave it after the end of the project. They provided security guards to help ensure that there was no crime and the equipment was safe. And they provided many opportunities for local people to participate. I've given you links to the Kwanzaa websites, and you can learn about what happens and the philosophy behind it. But basically, they were going to take people from 5 provinces to a 6-week training class, experiential, in a rural area, and teach people skills like carpentry, screen making. And then the goal was for these people to come back and be the leaders of the community and implement small business and objectives that were needed and defined by the community. The result of the Kwanzaa project was they did not win the contest, but they did get rewards and continued support. And over time, the initial 100 people who went to the training, or the 100 people who were selected, 50 people went to training, led to 2,500 actively employed local people, and the community was totally involved, completely cleaned up, and the culture of the community changed. That was an impetus for many, many partnership activities and brought many more people into the school. So that to me was an example of an excellent partnership. To honor Chris's telling the negative parts of it, it was very difficult to sustain. You needed an on-the-ground community organizer, which we were very fortunate to have. He was an ex-principal in one of the schools and had more energy and more connections. Without him, none of this could have happened. So he's the link or intermediary to all the partnerships in the schools. But he personally did not have the best project management skills. So we now know that you need either one person with stellar community organizing and project management skills, or you need two people who can work very closely together. Managing the project overall from the U.S., where both myself and my partner were located at the time, even though I made 5 trips a year, what is not optimum. The local knowledge and local proximity is very important. And I think at the end of the day, I would say the biggest thing that I would do differently and learning is to be even clearer on the expectations of participation with the partners and the school itself, that this is not being done to them, but they have to actually lead in terms of what they need, and the goal is to make them self-sufficient as opposed to giving them money or fulfilling needs next to them as opposed to with them. And I think that's where I'll stop.
Carol, that was great. Thank you.
Carol, that was great.
I'm sure that people will wanting to throw in their own observations from what you've said. I do hope that people are going to join the discussion at the end, but right now I'd like to move on quickly to welcome Jana, who will tell us about some practical partnerships that she has made in the Czech Republic. Welcome, Jana.
Jana, it's Doug here. If you click on your talk button in the upper left-hand corner, we should be able to hear you.
I think Jana is having difficulties, so Jana, while you try and get sorted, I think we'll move on at this point and ask Bill if you could tell us a little bit about your experiences of being working in NGOs and hang on, I can see that Jana has now joined us. Okay, Jana, are you ready?
Good everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes, very clearly.
Yes, okay. Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, yes, we can hear you.
Hello, Chris. Hello, everyone. So, as for our school cooperates with many institutions, but the topic today is partnership, and real partnership is only if both or all partners get some benefits from the partnership. So I would like to mention only our best partners. So one of them is local authority, which is our founder. Next is parental association, and between the next I would like to mention, for example, some association in our village, for example, the fire brigade or hunter association or garden association or some small businesses. We can offer them always the same. We can offer them some places or special rooms in our school. We can offer them our knowledge, our skills, and our creativity because we are teachers. We can offer them, for example, our school canteen, which can prepare meals for some special events in our village. Our pupils very often promote the villages in our region via school projects, for example. And I think our main or our best thing we do is that we teach our pupils to become useful members in their villages, not only useful but active and too proud of their villages. On the other hand, our partners offer us or help us, especially with money, because they give us money to enable all our pupils to attend all school activities like trips, concerts, swimming and skiing courses, etc. They help us with organization of some special events. They can lend us, for example, the building with cinema, and there are many voluntaries among parents or between the officers of local government that are willing to help us within the special events. They work with us at school, for example. I must say that the beginnings or our beginnings were a bit difficult because we were the initiators. We had to ask for help. We had to offer something. But now things changed because very often somebody comes and says, "Hey, we have a good idea. Let's do the things together. We can do this, and we need from you to do something else." And I think our partnership with all of the mentioned associations is very good because we have the common aim. Because our common aim is to improve the quality of life of people in a community, to support families in a region, to make people in our region more satisfied and more proud of the region. And because this is our common aim, our common goal, everybody or every of us do the best for it. So I think that's all.
Thank you very much, Jana. And I'm sure that, again, people will want to ask you questions or to make some additional points afterwards. But I'll move swiftly on now, if I may, to our last speaker, who is Bill Malley. Bill, you're going to talk from outside the school, trying to build partnerships with schools. And following on from the others, it would be very useful, I think, if people heard about one particular partnership that you think worked well. And again, if you just mentioned any potential difficulties that you encountered and hopefully overcame.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, as Chris has said, I want to talk about the work of, I think what generally will be known as an NGO, an organisation called Diversity Hub. that has about 30 years experience of working in England in a range of different ways, and is broadly working in the area of leadership development. Diversity Hubs has 4 programs that it's used with a whole range of different schools over the last 5 or 6 years. One is called Welcoming Diversity, which essentially is working on issues of racism, sexism, inclusiveness, where we build people's confidence about themselves and celebrate the people who are involved in the program to create an awareness and sustain skills that participants can support each other. The second program we've been delivering in schools is called Friends Against Bullying, which is a peer support program tackling, as the name suggests, bullying and harassment in schools. The third program is called Champions Against Violence, which is essentially a program working with children and young people on issues relating to domestic violence. And lastly, we've been developing in the last 6 months a program with parents and school children, which is intended to change the relationship between parents and children and the schools that they're working in, essentially to improve school performance. I've just, as Chris suggested, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the detail of the programs, but we are, as an organisation, we are in a sense on the outside looking in. From our perspective, from a Diversity Hub perspective, there are schools represent a number of opportunities for us as an organisation, as an NGO trying to work with people in a range of ways. Essentially, schools have relationships with children and young people that we want to work with, so they're kind of a reservoir of opportunity for us. When this works well for us, the schools will recruit and select the children and young people that will participate in the programs. So, for example, if I take Champions Against Violence, which is aimed at children and young people who have been experiencing aspects of domestic violence, the schools will, if they're working well with the young people and children, will already know who those young people will be and will be able to encourage them to participate in the Champions Against Violence program. And the third major benefit for us is that if we come into a school and work well with the pupils and the staff, the schools will provide ongoing support for those children in terms of how they continue to develop, utilise the skills and awarenesses that they might take out of Diversity Hub's programs. Now, at the risk of ending on what might be a downbeat, there are some difficulties for us in terms of working with schools. One of them is that actually schools for us can be really hard to get into. Within the UK, or certainly England and Wales, schools have a very busy schedule, very busy academic schedule, and they're not always receptive to our overtures, our offers to come in and work with them. This is particularly the case if we are working on issues that might have some sensitivity for the schools. So a school will either need to have a particular problem relating to bullying, or be quite confident about how the local community views it if it wants to run an anti-bullying program. So some of the issues we want to raise and work with, if they're known publicly by the wider community, might raise question marks for the school. Generally, schools are very reluctant to pay for or resource our programs. that's a problem for us, so we need to raise the money if we can and offer these opportunities to schools. Sometimes schools cancel our programs at very short notice, and this can create major problems for us in terms of the preparation we might have put into in starting and launching the program, and it leaves a hole in our schedule that's difficult for us to fill. And the last issue is that schools don't always follow through on what they say they're going to do. And what I mean by that would be, if they do offer to recruit to a program, they don't always recruit in the way that we anticipate. So we may end up with pupils that actually don't fit the program profile, or instead of 15 or 20 pupils participating, they might have recruited 3, and that creates difficulties in terms of a program that's designed for a larger group. I mean, having raised those kinds of issues, schools are an important opportunity for us as an organisation within a wider range of programs that we deliver, not just in schools but in other institutions and venues. And we're committed to carry on our attempts to collaborate. I mean, just to reinforce some aspect of what Carol mentioned earlier, there's quite the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, which is an English-based charity with quite a high standard for research, did a study about, I think it was 8 or 10 years ago, where they identified that approximately 90% of the factors that influence pupils' learning in schools are actually factors that are outside of schools. So one of the things they were saying was, if we wanted to maximise children and young people's learning in schools, there was stuff that needed to happen both outside of the school and also bring the community back into schools, and we're very much part of that process. I think I want to stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Bill. That was very thought-provoking, I think, because very often in these discussions we approach the issues from the school's perspective, and it's always extremely helpful, I find, to have other agencies who wish to make partnerships with schools explaining how it works for them and from their partnership. And Jana, I think, made a very important point in her presentation when she said that they found that it works best when there is something in it for both partners. And I think also Carol made a very important point when she said that it's very important that you are clear right from the start that both sides understand exactly what it is that they're signing up to do, and they keep that going. And I think that's been reflected in what you've all said. For me, listening to it, there were a couple of other points that I thought were interesting too, and that was that sometimes the partnership delivered extra money which enabled you to do something, but also, very importantly, additional human resources, people, ideas, and the opportunity to join in other programs more widely, and new skills. And importantly, those new things are perhaps linked to the local economy, or maybe linked to the kind of sensitive issues which Bill has just outlined for us. Having said that, it would be very interesting now to hear from everybody else who is here and listening. It's over to you. Please do join in. Tell us about your experiences, or if you want to add to anything that anybody's already said, please tell us.
It's Doug McCall here. As we're waiting for people to gather their thoughts, I note that Carol has asked Bill to provide the reference that he referred to, and perhaps, Bill, you can do that as part of the slides you're going to send me. But also, if people have web pages or documents that they would like to have referred to in this presentation, please send them to either Chris or myself, and we'll make sure that they get posted into the archive for this page. So that we'll be able to have some sort of set of readings related to this.
Cornelia, I know that working in partnership has been an important part of the work that you have done. Is there something you'd like to share with us?
I was just on the point of pressing the button talk. I wanted to start with a question to Carol. Working in Africa was really a challenge, I can imagine. But in general, working in deprived areas, when people are really so much focused on their own immediate needs, it's so challenging to raise the concept of building partnerships probably around schools, and also have this venture a sustainable one. I know that even from the situation in rural Moldova, where Moldova now is considered one of the poorest countries in Europe, so our rural schools are really in quite a difficult situation now. And sometimes it's very hard even to keep their spirit up. So it's so important for us as an organization to be there as a network and support them and provide some encouragement through sharing of ideas, how to optimize and use the scarce resources in a very optimal way, how really there are possibilities of find extra resources, not necessarily financial resources, and how this might help the schools keep going. And my question to Carol is, she was speaking about one of the leaders in the local community who was the one who was promoting this change, and that it's so important that the community schools get really this sense of ownership and keeps the ball rolling when the project stops. How do you see the future of this pilot? Well, I wouldn't consider it a pilot probably, but of this work that you have done up till now. And we were once asked if many things, many changes depend just upon one leader. Isn't it risky? Well, that would be probably my main question: the sustainability of such things in very poor, deprived areas.
Well, you couldn't have phrased my question or my current situation any better. I think you have identified the core issue that is my life's work, is how can it be sustained? And it can't possibly depend on a leader, a person. It has to be done as a process. And I think that the way we have decided, the only way that the kind of work we've been doing is going to be maintained is to create clusters of communities of practice, so that schools that have embraced at one level, some have been 12 or 15 years into being community schools, long before the term, I think, was popular or even understood. They just did it intuitively. to people who are committed because they think it's a good idea. And in one area of the Eastern Cape, there's a group of 13 schools that are looking at how they can define a strategy, and they have monthly meetings, and they've been working on this for about almost 2 years. And the most interesting piece is that they have come up with a mission of their own that says they want to look at the school from the perspective of pathways that are from the beginning of life of a child to the end of life, and what are the learning components and partnerships that are needed to support that. So this is, in my mind, a culture change, a societal change that will take the rest of my life and beyond that, but it's the only way. And rural areas, there's an even bigger challenge because of the physicality of getting people together. But in one of the schools where the children commuted to school very, very far, we took programs into the community instead of expecting the parents to come to us, because transportation was a huge issue. So sustainability will remain the biggest challenge.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol. Thanks for asking.
Chris, it's Doug here. Maybe I could make a short comment about that issue of sustainability of partnerships, and because I think that's really, really important in the longer term. As we learn from examples and as we generalize from our experiences, and the three presentations have been excellent in highlighting many of the issues, and is that there needs to be a purposeful set of objectives at a systems level, at a Ministry of Education, at a Ministry of Social Services, at a Ministry of Health Promotion, such that cooperation is funded and supported in the systems. And we have a little set of capacities that we've identified. Two of those capacities are basic to this idea of cooperation or partnerships, and one of them is that there needs to be assigned at each level, be it a school or a school board agency or at an interministry level, a set of coordinators who can facilitate the exchanges across the systems and the agencies and schools and professionals that need to be done. And the other concept, that capacity that we've tried to articulate, is that there are formal mechanisms and informal mechanisms for cooperation that need to be constantly built and rebuilt. And things such as informal things such as interministry committees or school level committees, protocols, joint job descriptions, those kinds of things, quite formal, and then informal things, which are the shared vision and passion, perhaps joint in-service training, and joint projects and so on. And so there are informal things that can be done as well. And without that kind of system commitment, we are sometimes left with great things that grow and then fade away as people get reassigned and move elsewhere in their lives, or that other circumstances, external circumstances, change. And so we need to think about how we can build into the various systems at all levels these two capacities I think are critical to sustaining partnerships.
Thank you for that, Doug. I would agree with you, of course, that it is very, very important if this becomes part of policy and if there are rules and regulations and people in place whose responsibility it is to make sure that they happen and to oil the wheels. However, speaking from the UK at the moment, We have a period of austerity, which is a time when the government is cutting public spending quite dramatically. And it's becoming, at this point in time, very, very difficult to try and press for this kind of change that you talk about, and which I completely agree is very important. So in the meantime, I guess if we're working in places like the UK or places like Moldova or South Africa, places where we don't yet have and can see no prospect yet of attaining this kind of system level approach, we must look for ways in which we can at least be building enthusiasm, building trust and confidence, building skills through the methods that we have available to us at the moment. And one of those, I think, that's come out quite loud and clear during this discussion is peer group networking, people talking with each other and helping to keep each other's spirits up, people talking to each other and learning some new practices and new ideas, as well as being aware of some of the pitfalls before they start. So I hope that in some small way this webinar and these webinars are contributing to that process. I can see, I think that Anara has been writing. I don't know if that's because Anara would like to say something, but is writing it. I'm not sure because I can't see chat lines. Can somebody let me know, please?
It hasn't appeared yet in the chat box, Chris, but I'll, as soon as it does, or maybe Anara can click on the talk button and speak directly.
Sorry, I just wanted to inquire about references for what has been told by Carol and Bill, because I saw people were asking, and I also asked if we can see the link right now to understand more, because I think it's a little bit different than what we have in Kazakhstan. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but I can't hear Anara. Are you able to hear her, Doug?
No, it was quite a bit of background noise. I'm sorry as well. Perhaps, Anara, you could type your message into the chat box and then press enter on your computer keypad, and then it will appear in the chat box. And Anara's asking, I see that she'd like to have some of the references for what Bill and Carol have said. And as noted earlier, we'll be posting the slides and links. Within the slides, there'll be links to some of the materials and examples that they were referring to. Thanks, Anara.
I wonder.
Okay. Go ahead, Bill.
I just wanted to comment on aspects of sustainability and the observations that will be made about policy, well, certainly national policy in terms of education and how that might encourage approaches to community schooling. Now, Chris, you mentioned the UK, and if you look over the last 40 years of the English education system, we've had two substantial periods of policy support for community-based schooling. Both of those have withered away, and I think that's reflected in your comments about the period of apparent austerity we're going through, although I would offer the view that education in the UK is still one of the best funded public services in the country. But as well as a kind of a policy commitment to partnership working or community schooling, the individual attitude of particular members of staff for us as an outsider also remains critical, because there can be policy commitments both at a school level an institution level and at a national policy level, but without individual commitment to act and think, or think and act in particular ways, that becomes a very sterile environment. So bizarrely, whilst we as an organisation would want to encourage some kind of policy commitments, generally speaking, our partnership working is driven much more successfully and has a longer sustainable view when individuals are committed to it and will carry it forward year in, year out. Of course, that then becomes vulnerable when those individuals move on. But it isn't an either or. We need a policy commitment and we need individuals that are enthusiastic and want to take up the challenges this kind of working provides.
Okay, thank you very much for that point, Bill.
Chris, I have a comment that you won't be able to see because of the glitch in your screen, but it's from Leah from Belgium, from Flanders, who is commenting on the experience they've had with projects that were funded between 2006 and 2009 by the Ministry of Education, and they found that the impact of a coordinator was quite significant. However, she's also seen that it's been difficult to sustain that for the reasons that we've talked about. So that I think, and it comes down again to dependent upon the people. So I guess, as Bill has noted, I think it's not an either or. There's a need to shift the focus of the conversation, in my view anyway, to ask systems to think about the capacity regarding the two capacities needed to coordinate things, a coordinator at all levels, and then also a real commitment to formal and informal ways of working together. And that doesn't, at the same time, we need a grassroots up and outside in kind of conversation where there are a number of informal things particularly, but also more formal things that can be built and constantly rebuilt if there is the people and the passion to initiate them. But I guess it's important that, because most people respond to an issue, be it whatever, be it poverty, be it whatever kind of issue of the day, but we need to keep in a longer term view and always trying to be building those two kinds of capacities in our work so that there's better hope of sustainability. And I'm just trying to leave,
thank you.
Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, I thought you'd finished, Doug.
Yes, I did. I was just looking to see if there's Carol is asking Leah for references to that, and please, if Leah can just send it to Chris or myself, we'll make sure it's posted.
Thank you very much. I think unless anybody is dying to speak now, I think we've come to the end of our discussion. I'm sure that all these are points that will be picked up again in greater depth in future webinars when we might look at specific types of partnerships and look at more detail about, for example, the kind of protocols which people work together on. I'd like to say to those who have joined us part way through, we know that there are 11 people in the room from several different countries at the moment, but we know too that at least 80 people, possibly more, have signed up to this webinar and will be listening to the recorded version. There will be a recorded version, so if you were not able to join us at the beginning and maybe, like Sean here, only just caught the end of it, you can listen again by going to our archives. So do contact me or contact Doug if you want more information about that. Thank you so much to everybody for joining this discussion, and I look forward to a future event when we will be discussing another aspect of community schools. And thank you particularly to our three presenters, who I think gave us a very excellent and insightful all-round description of the ups and the downs of partnership building between schools and other organizations. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris, and thank you again as well to speakers. If people, as they leave the meeting room, if you could remember to go under the menu under File and choose Exit. Unfortunately, the recording will continue unless we all exit the room, so to speak. So if you could do that as we finish up the session, and